This is an LED bulb and light emitting diode, different than your incandescent light bulb that you used to, that we've been living with for 100 years. This actually uses between 80 and 90% less electricity, but puts out the same amount of light as an incandescent bulb. And so in this house, there are only LED bulbs. Now they're expensive when you first buy them. This bulb probably cost $18, but it'll burn for 16,000 hours. So you do the math on it, and over a lifetime of a bulb, you have to replace it fewer times, you have to make fewer purchases. But not only that, by burning 80-90% less electricity, the savings is incredible. So if you didn't do anything to your house, if you didn't insulate it as you should, or you didn't put in new windows as you should if you really want to be energy efficient, you just used LED light bulbs in place of the incandescents, then you would have you'd lower your lighting bill by maybe 80%. That'd be a first good move, but making that first expense is a tough charge. Now, incandescent bulbs, if you were to put 100 units of electricity into an incandescent bulb, 3 of those units of electricity would go to make the light. 97 of those units would go to make the heat. That's why they always say that an incandescent bulb is a great heater but a bad light. These take 97 of those units of energy to make the light, only 3 to make the heat. And so after this is burned for 8 or 9 hours, and you can grab it like that, because you just don't feel the heat coming out of it, only the light. So it's a new design. And so I recommend that if you get a chance to do anything in your house, first thing you do is go out and buy some LED bulbs. And then you will not be shocked when you see your utility bill, except to go, oh my goodness, I had no idea it would be that low. So that's one of the things that we have in this house, one of the energy saving measures among a lot. And I'd like to show you more. So welcome to the equipment room. This is the geothermal area, and all of these copper tubes that you see behind me are completely foreign to me. It's like reading Greek. I don't understand anything about that, but the people and the engineers who put it in absolutely do, and it's been explained to me, and I should remember everything, but I'm not sure that I do. Anyway, we have radiant floor heat, and that's an interesting concept to me because it takes thermal mass as well as geothermal and puts them together. Geothermal uses the heat of the earth. There are 5 wells out in the front yard, and they're continuous. Through it flow a food-grade glycol, so that if it did ever spring a leak, it would never hurt anything because it is non-toxic. Then it is brought up from the ground at about 47, 50 degrees, and then 2 degrees are pulled off of it, compressed, and when you compress molecules, you make heat. And that is the heat that you use, and it heats the water, and it also heats the glycol. The glycol flows through all of the radiant floor tubing that's put in before the final flooring is added to your house. So that is the heat source. Your house becomes the heater, in other words. It's not forced air. Now, on top of all of those tubes, they put about 4 inches of sand and gypcrete, concrete in essence. So it's not even on the second floor, a very solid house. So you have this on top of the tubing. So when the tubing heats up, it warms the thermal mass first, then it warms the rest of your house. So you have this constant temperature that makes your house the heater. And then at 9 o'clock at night, you can turn off the heater because the thermal mass, all the heat that's built up in that thermal mass releases throughout the evening. So you're using less electricity to pump the fluids through the radiant floor. But I get to rely on solar when that happens. So all through the day in the winter when I need electricity to run the generators, run the pumps, to run the exchanger, all of that comes from the sun. So I hope not to have any heating bills either. That'd be cool. That's cool. So when you go outside the house, there are some interesting things to see as well. On the roof and on the subroof to the my room, the studio, which I tricked my wife into letting me have by saying, could I have the little space over the top of the roof, and a little space over the top of the garage in our house was really just a place you put old 2x4s and things. She went, why would I want that? But I put a place up there, and that's my studio library. So all of those behind me on this garage are the solar panels, 5.4 kilowatts. And that's enough to supply the house with electricity and makes your utility bill go down a lot. In fact, when you're not here, all of the solar electricity that you're producing is intertied back into the system, to the grid. And so that electricity flows back, your neighbors get to use it, everybody else gets to use it, and you become sort of a utility yourself, a mini utility. And then they have to pay you under state law the same thing they charge you for a kilowatt hour of electricity. So at the end of the year, what you hope is that you end up with no electrical bill at all. That's what you hope. Then on the roof, you also see some shingles that look like cedar shake shingles. They're not. They're made out of old tractor tires that were thrown into dumps and old sawdust by a company called EnviroShake out of Ontario, Canada. And they compress these. They're guaranteed unconditionally for 50 years, this roof, and conditionally for another 50 years. So there's a possibility of a 100-year unconditional or conditional guarantee. And that's really good when you're talking to your insurance people who are doing home insurance. They say, well, I'll never have to replace the roof. And that takes a lot off your insurance bill. Plus, you're taking all of that stuff out of the landfill. The key is you don't waste anything. You use as much as you possibly can that somebody else would have thrown away. So this is all the stuff from the dump. Let me show you else that came from the dump. It's down here. This is what I wanted to show you down here. These are permeable pavers. They look like brick, but they're not. They're made out of plastic bags that have been thrown away, and also out of old plastic pop bottles that did not get recycled. And so this is taking all this refuse out of the landfill and putting it to use. But the permeable paver part is really also important, because one of the functions of energy efficiency and efficiency altogether is no waste. So not only are you trying to avoid wasting good products that otherwise would have been thrown away, but you don't want to waste water. Water is probably the most depletable of the resources that we have, and so this house is representative not only of energy efficiency, but of water efficiency as well. So we collect in a cistern about 80% to 85% of all the rainwater that falls on the roof into a cistern, which is later used for drip irrigation. We have a gray water return system that allows us to take all of the water that's used in the sinks, the tubs, and the showers, and then pump back up into the commode, so you're not using fresh drinking water that you're paying tax money to have purified just for the toilets. So there are many different ways to be efficient when it comes to water. But let me give you an example of what this does here. Beneath this is about 3,500 gallons holding tank in aggregate stone. So I have a little bucket of water here. I want to show you what happens when you pour water on these permeable pavers. Now, you see that water goes nowhere. We're on a hill. That should be running all the way downhill past the camera. And it disappears. And in 5 minutes, that'll be completely dry. That's not only good for rain, but it's good for snow. So you come out and give it a light cleaning with a shovel, and the solar heat coming down warms the plastic brick, and it melts the snow. The snow then turns to water and drips down into this holding tank, and in the winter you'll have a completely clean, almost like it was a heated driveway. But the best part of it, you're saving money and you're saving water.